Hello, hello. We are live. Sorry for some of the adjustments early on there. I'm changing the camera setting that I'm trying to figure out a decent setup for this so my head won't be much in the frame. I tend to get kind of close um, when I am inking. Actually, I just realized there is one thing unplugged over here. Okay. So tonight we are going to be inking Cthulhu. And, sorry, just getting everything all set up and right. So yeah, we are going to be inking Cthulhu. This isn't going to be a straight black and white inked image. It's actually going to be ink, various washes of ink to kind of give like a grayscale effect and stuff. The ink I'll be using is, let's see, there we go. Ooh. Dr. Martin's Dr. Martin's Black Star waterproof India ink matte. This stuff's amazing. I used to use, let's see if I have it. I have the brown version of what I used to use. I used to use Bombay in the black. This is India. This is Van Dyke brown. I still use this off and on. I did used to use the Bombay black ink though. I eventually fell out of favor with it. I didn't quite like its coverage. It's just personal preference. It's a totally fine ink. And after that, I was using Sumi ink for a while, which is also a fine ink to use. If you're sensitive to smells, I would recommend against it because it's made of camphor oil as one of the main ingredient within Sumi ink. As far as I'm aware, it's totally fine to use. It's just if you have a sensitivity for smells or whatever, yeah, it's gonna smell kind of like Vicks Vapor Rub, sorta. Yeah, but no, this stuff is amazing. Incredibly dense black inks on it. Flows beautifully from brush or a pen. And actually, that does remind me, do I have a pen that I can use for this? Or are we going to have to just go full brush? This is something I should have checked before I went live. It's like I have two manga nibs. Let's see, I know he's around here somewhere. Sorry, I'm just rummaging off camera. Which I should probably do a tour of that at some point to show all of this nonsense that I call my art studio. Let's see. I may have to use some Hunt 101s or something tonight. If I can get it open. There we go. What do we got here? Oh no, you're totally dead. How about you? Are you good? Oh, you're totally dead too. So, you know what, I wonder, let's see if I can get this open. I'm gonna plan to primarily ink this with a brush, but I'm also using these Tachikawa G nibs. It looks like it might be slightly. There we go. Looked like I was slightly out of focus for a moment. Just make sure this fits into my brush holder, or my pen holder, and then we can get going. Okay, perfect. So yeah, we're going to be using Tachikawa G-Nib pen nib. I prefer these over the Hunts. Hunt nibs, I've never been a fan of them. These move great. Before I started inking with a brush, or getting more comfortable with inking with a brush, I used to use these pretty much religiously. My brushes tonight, I have 4, and we're going to kind of see which one works initially before we go forward with this. There we go. These two are Rosemary Sables. All of these are Kolinsky Sable brushes. It's the only natural hair brushes I think I have in my studio. All the other ones are synthetic because I tend to use them all in between acrylic and watercolor and gouache. It's easier if they're all synthetic, because acrylics are notoriously hard on natural hair. But yes, these two are Rosemary brushes. I got them on a whim a while ago when I was trying to find a replacement for the Winsor Newton Series 7. If I remember right, I was not a fan of the snaps on these. They have a very poor... Let's see if I can kind of... They have a very poor ability to get to a point, it seemed, and also to like jump up and kind of come back to a point. And you can kind of see it's fine that way, but that way it's kind of wide, and I can never seem to get it. And it might just be a bad brush, to be honest. So I may be doing a little bit of experimenting initially before we get started on these. This is a little more blunt one. I actually might use this one for the background. We shall see. So we're painting Cthulhu. I'm kind of planning to do like an under lighting scenario instead of an overhead lighting. Overhead lighting, it would kind of just show him to be like plain Jane. Having it be like lit from below will add to some of the mystique of this fella. So yeah, this brush still... I'm also incredibly bad about replacing my brushes when they're worn out. So I think even though this guy is probably dead, he might still be my one to use. I'm getting the... And no webcam tonight because just my devices all have to kind of get charged and whatever, so I wasn't able to get that set up tonight. I have to have the iPad is charging off somewhere while the phone is acting as my view for the chat and all that. But yeah, I always wet the brushes first, get them saturated water just to kind of get them used to it, and then, yes, you see this is the Rosemary brush. You can already see it's been wet. It's already been wet once, and it's like fraying. There we go. It's a little bit better. Yeah, if I remember right, I was not a fan of those for that very reason. Okay, so that one looks good. It has been a while since I've inked. I kind of have a little bit of a process to it, like a step-by-step. I tend to tackle backgrounds first, or anything where it's spot blacks, just to kind of get back into the flow of things, and then I'll move into finer lines as I go on. Okay, yeah, so that's going to be good. Might as well not waste this ink. So, yep, already I'm afraid of. We might have to adjust the camera just to account for my big head. And it seems like it's not quite capturing it. 1 second, I'm going to adjust the camera and see if I can get a better vantage point real fast. Okay, that's a little bit better. I think for inking purposes, that will suit us just fine. Cool. And that will work as well. Tachikawa. The Tachikawa it may have a residue on it. I'm not entirely sure. Sometimes I just got it out of the package, and sometimes when they come out of the package, they have a residue on them that's from the factory. You can get it off with just quickly heating it real briefly over like a flame, or taking an eraser and doing that to kind of abrasively remove it. So, alright, I'm going to get myself situated here. So we've got 3 buddies on this. The Tachikawa, the Rosemary as kind of a spotter to fill in these areas, and then my Winsor Newton Series 7 to kind of tackle some of the smaller spot blacks that will crop up as it goes. So we're going to start with the Rosemary and kind of start to just power in this area. And it's fine if I'm kind of planning it to be like a little textured, because we're going to have the ink wash come in later and it'll fill in all those gaps. So as it gets away from Cthulhu, it can be rough and it can start to break up and stuff. So just kind of quickly blocking in the spot blacks, getting those established as much as possible. I find that I tend to think better about my inks if I have the actual spot blacks in place first. Just because the lines don't contribute that much to like the picture read, but if I have the spot blacks in place, then I have a better idea of what the picture will need going forward and what I should focus on line-wise in terms of feathering and that kind of thing. Tricky thing, it'll be thinking about how I want the spot blacks on the body to be. I have to fight my urge to do standard top-down lighting for it. Alright. I'm going to switch over to the Series 7 so I can get a little bit closer and tackle that a little bit better. Excuse me 1 second. Okay. And yeah, that rosemary brush is kind of how I remember it. It's just maybe it's a better watercolor brush. I personally don't care for it. It's very floppy. This is interesting because I don't normally, for one thing, I don't normally ink vertical like this, I kind of keep it at a more horizontal thing. And then the other thing I do is I twist and turn the paper a lot, so to get the right line, so to kind of be locked off into this way, because I wasn't quite sure what would be the best way to show that. It's going to be very interesting as we go forward. And pretty much every time I go to brush, every time I go to dip the brush in ink, I am wiping it off a little with this shop towel, just to get the excess off. If you have too much on your brush, then you can't control it until the excess has left. these pencils I did earlier are relatively loose compared to how I pencil for paintings and all that. So I'm just trying to interpret what I want to do for this scene. As I'm laying it down, just so I can accurately reflect it. Like I'm trying to figure out where. Looks like, you know what? It's probably shaped like that. And yeah, right now I'm just kind of still blocking in where I want my spot blacks, but I think at least the really big ones were almost at the end. Like the really obvious ones. This area is going to be more difficult because I'm going to have to kind of stop and think about how I want to take it apart. But all of this, I kind of know what I want to do with it for the most part. Hey Bruce, yep. Yeah, I'm making Cthulhu tonight. Haven't done ink in a very long time, so I figured it would be kind of interesting to pop that back out and see how well I can pull it off. I was describing it for. Eventually, I put these up on an unlisted playlist on YouTube, so patrons can kind of see them once the recordings leave Twitch. They can kind of see it in perpetuity. So I was just, I was just describing my overall strategy on this right now, which is right now putting in all the spot blacks, and then we're going to go in with these are my two main workhorses. This Winsor Newton Series 7 that is probably horrifically burnt out in terms of a brush. I really should get a new one because you can kind of see that it's sitting off to the side a little bit when it's at rest and all that. This other thing is a Tachigawa Manga G nib, which is a fantastic inking nib. I much prefer them over the Hunt nibs, or like the Crow Quill nibs. So yeah, so like right now I'm just going through, I'm hitting the very obvious spot blacks that I want within this piece, and then I'll be going back in and kind of hitting these areas with some spot blacks here and there. We'll do a little bit of light. Yeah, I personally don't like crow quills. So Bruce is saying he had some crow quills back in the day. He was never been fond of inking. When I first started learning to ink, I was not terribly good with a brush. In fact, I avoided it for a long time just because I did not have real control. Inking with a brush was probably my first real experience with a brush, to be honest. And trying to make it work like a drawing utensil, which I was not used to at the time. So for a long time, I stuck to repeatographs, which are frickin' don't ever use them. They're such a pain. Or crow quill nibs, but I never liked the feel of crow quill nibs. I thought they were always too hard to describe. They just didn't have the right feel for me. I never liked how scratchy they felt and all that. But these Tachigawa nibs are rather nice. They flow rather nicely. You don't have that scratchy feeling that you get with the crow quills. I haven't really found anything else like it. I believe there's other manga nibs available as well, like Zebra Nib, I think is another one that's called. Trying to think of some others off the top of my head. Nope, can't think of any now I think about it. Yeah, no, there's some amazing Japanese inking nibs that just kind of blow the ones that we can get here out of the water. At least, like, there's really only one manufacturer in the U.S. for nibs, and that's Speedball. And I personally think they're terrible. So I don't buy them. I go out of my way to either order, or I used to go out of my way to order manga nibs online, but now my local art store seems to carry them. So the last time I got nibs, I got them from there. And yeah, I mean, we see it with all art supplies. Like, it's lower demand of the certain products, so then it kind of consolidates to being only one manufacturer of them in the end, at least in the US. And maybe that's the case with the Japanese nibs too, to be honest. I never looked into too deeply to see who's producing them. But they are, on a whole, much nicer quality. So, anyway, what I'm... Yeah, antitrust woes, yeah. Actually, yeah, I wonder, if Speedball bought out competitors, or if it was just a case of they were too big to really die out, and everyone else just kind of did as demand for inking with a pen, like a dip pen, fell out of favor. Because, I mean, you don't use them to write really anymore, unless you're doing specialty stuff like calligraphy or whatever. And God, even comic book artists nowadays, I mean, there are comic book artists that use them, but a lot of comic book artists just ink digitally because of time. I'm just getting off some excess ink so I can kind of dry brush it in. What I'm planning to do later on is go in with some ink washes over it just to kind of give it a more painterly effect than just a straight black and white. Yeah, yeah, Bruce, you're right. Like a lot of companies have been just rolled up over the years into becoming de facto monopolies. I'm pretty sure Prismacolor's parent company, Sanford, I think, is it's like Sanford, Ticonderoga, and there's one other drawing manufacturer, and I forget their names. Oh, you know what? Come to think of it, talking about companies, this you may know an answer to this, possibly, or you may have heard of an answer to this or whatever. So a while back, so these Series 7 brushes I've had for, say like 12 years now or whatever. They're horrifically. I'm notoriously bad about updating my brushes when they get worn out. I tend to use them past the point of no return. Uh, Same thing with all my other brushes. But some years back, like maybe 5 years back or so, I ordered actually two Kolinsky Sable brushes from Rosemary Company, just to kind of see if they could work as a decent replacement. And at least for me personally, I don't care for them. I think they're terrible brushes for inking. They don't have the right snap or the right feel. They just feel very floppy when you're kind of brushing with them. Like their bristles have no snapback quality to them, like how I found with the Series 7. And maybe I just bought the wrong type of Kolinsky Sables that she had on that they have on their site. And I'm not sure if any other artists that we know of personally buys their brushes for anything besides oil painting or any kind of painting, to be honest. Like if like Dan or someone else maybe buys them for inking purposes. Yeah, so I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Ron, I believe, uses white sable, which is the Robert Simmons white sables. I think he uses these for inking, and I've used them too. The only thing is I've noticed with synthetic bristles is they don't hold onto the ink as readily as a natural bristle does. They're very eager to give up the ink when you're inking, um, which can be nice. It's not the end of the world. There are times though when you don't want it to do that, and it's a very weird experience. Yeah, I wonder though if I wonder if he uses. He might also just be sticking to Winsor Newton's. Hey, Mark, how are you doing? Yeah, Ron may also just be sticking to Winsor Newton's Series 7s. And that's still in the realm of possibility. Like I could just go out and buy some more Winsor Newton Series 7s and be done with it. Oh man. Working on Pocket Fighter or a different project? Oh, and let me know if this picture's too dark. I had it lower earlier. I had the exposure a little bit lower just to have the pencil show up, but now I'm kind of looking over. I'm wondering if it's getting too dark to see. So if it is, just let me know and I can up the exposure by a step or two. Oh man. So my friend Mark he's working on it is basically a chibi version of Street Fighter, correct? That's what I remember. Yeah. Yeah, so he's been working away on this. It's been looking fantastic. So you've been doing the yeah, you're making like a huge change in the net play. Oh man. Yeah, I would not even know where to begin with that. So kudos to you. So yeah, so now I'm getting into the parts where the spot blacks are less connected, and I am trying just to hit them all up before I go in with the manga nib. Really? It'll take a couple weeks just to change that around? Oh yeah, thanks Bruce. Yeah, I'm excited. I was really surprised when I got that email. I hope I do it justice. Uh, I told Stephanie that I'm gonna need a little bit of hand holding on tarot cards because I'm very out of my element with that. I've never done any tarot card divination either like on the receiving end or on the dealing out end. The symbolism I'm not terribly familiar with outside of outside of Mark will appreciate this outside of like JoJo references. Yeah, that's kind of what I found out. So I need to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the King of Pentacles. I just did like a very cursory Wikipedia search on um, what the background was for the Rider. It's the Rider Waite Tarot card. Is that what it is? If I remember right, the Rider Waite Tarot deck. Um, I need to do some more reading tonight. I guess it was developed with what was it that I looked up? I think it's called it was a quasi-religious group called the Heretic of the New Dawn or something like that, which reading I was like, oh my god, that already sounds like a weird crackpot cult. um, but yeah, so it was I guess a lot of the Christian references in the tarot deck were swapped out for more, I guess for lack of a better word, like more generic representations. Um, I guess to fit for this heretic of the New Dawn or whatever they were called for their needs or something like that. This is very rough paraphrasing on my part, so I apologize if I'm getting several parts of it wrong. But yeah, and there's some amazing talent in this tarot deck. So I'm very excited to see what everyone kind of cooks up with it. So I'm just now establishing. I'm there's still a few black areas that I want to hit up before I go in. Yeah, she has some amazing contacts. I was surprised. So yeah, so I want to. I'm just hitting up some black areas to go in beforehand. And oh my God, Mark, I'm sorry. I just saw your thing saying you have to change every line of code, so it's probably like 30 or 50,000 lines of code. Yeah, I'm glad I don't do that. I I did like some very cursory uh computer, not even like computer programming, just some like advanced web programming for like web pages and stuff back in the day. Not as like a business or anything. It was just me trying to figure out how to do it to make a portfolio site because I didn't want to pay anyone to do. This was like before Squarespace and all that, and I didn't want to pay for anyone else to like set up a PHP server thing. So I remember I was like trying to look into like seeing how hard it would be to learn that kind of thing. And yeah, I remember I hit a point where I was like, nope, I don't want to. I don't want to figure this out. This seems like a huge deep dive. Oh, really? Oh yeah, Bruce, I'm sorry I just saw your thing. Like so they only paid 175 for the animal deck? Who yeah, that sorry, I'm carrying two conversations here. Yeah, Mark. And I did know that. I kind of figured that HTML was pretty low, especially compared to other things like I've seen my wife talk about C sharp and uh what's the other one that she's done? Forget. Oh, Java as well, which from what I understand, is much more forgiving than C sharp. And yeah, like it's one of those things. Like I understand the concepts enough to know I don't want to have any part of it. Who now, Bruce? Who did the Animal Tarot deck? Was that a company or I don't know why I thought it was like a collection of artists that just got together to do that. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why when I saw everyone kind of announcing, I thought it was a like group effort, kind of like what we tried to do with the Victorian horror stuff some years back. I admittedly did not look much into it, so I wasn't sure if it was something like that or if it was someone that was tapping people to do that. But no, yeah, the pay for the tarot for this new tarot deck is pretty agreeable. As soon as I saw that, I was like, yeah, sure, totally, I'm on board for this. Um, it's interesting because I'm getting depending on how this Kickstarter goes, I'll have to contend with that in the fall, and then I have I have this, which is going to get knocked out fairly quick because it's due at like the end of August. And then I have a sculpting job that I'll be picking up in September, I believe. I got you. No, that's totally fair. Sometimes you need a project like that where it can be a palate cleanser. I have definitely taken projects like that on, where I was just like, I need a break from doing t-shirts. What do you got for me? And yeah, Mark, that is like a make or break moment. It sounds like. So I hope you come out of it of the fires the other side a stronger programmer as a result. Yeah. At least you can have print print rights to it all. I think this should be a dark spot. And then this area should be a dark spot as well, just to help define that arm a little bit better. I'm going to like not fill it in totally because we'll have some of the ink wash go in there and fill in that information later on. My God, man. Sorry. So yeah, I've been trying to get better about only responding one-sided conversations on this because I know people that are watching the stream probably don't know what the hell I'm reacting to. Yeah. So Mark said that he's doing some programming that most AAA fighting games don't even bother with, and that is intense. So what's funny is when I started inking this, I was thinking like I was kind of lamenting the fact that I wasn't going to be able to do a lot of how I normally ink, which is I flip around the page a lot and I twist and turn it when I'm inking, so I can always get the right line pull. I'm guessing the years of actually painting now have paid off because this is not as bad. Might also be because I'm kind of inking more like this is a painting than inking like how I've inked in the past. A little bit. Inking is one of those things like I step away from it and then anytime I come back to it, I'm like, oh shit, I can do this now. That was actually me with brush inking. In the moments before, in the last time that I was inking before I started brush inking again, I was only using repeatographs, which are, if you don't know, repeatographs are basically the predecessor to microns, and they're very finicky. They don't you know how microns can kind of, if anyone has ever used a micron, you know that because of the nib on it, there's a little bit of a flex, instead of it being like a total dead line. But the way that repeatographs are machined, you have nothing but a dead line. So that's what I was using beforehand, and then I took a break from inking, picked it up like 2 years later, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh wow, I can ink with a brush now. I don't know when that happened. That's strange. Oh, see, you would hate repeatographs even more, Bruce. Oh, see, yeah, so Mark told me that he's terrified of doing anything that doesn't have an undo feature. Yeah, inking dissuades you of that real fast. There's a there's a video of me inking an illustration on my YouTube channel, which I have, I think, like 3 videos on there, so it's not really something that I've like put like a whole lot of time into or anything like that. But I mainly use it as just like a means if I want to like share a video elsewhere. That's where I put it up, so I can kind of do that. But I don't know how hard it is to see, but there's a part in the time lapse where all of a sudden in the inking there's a big black splotch that happens. What happened was a kitten that we had at the time, she got her paw in the ink, and then I had to kind of work around that because it's not like paint. Like paint, you can kind of reasonably lift out a little bit if you catch it quick enough. Ink, in all its forms, once it goes down, it's down. There's no going back. So yeah, I had this big ink splotch that I had to kind of work around and make it look like it was intentional. And I think I did a decent job with it. Honestly, I think if I never mentioned it, no one would ever know. No, so I know some artists don't mind whiteout. I personally dislike it, and I try to avoid it entirely. I go in, if I'm inking, I go with the philosophy of either don't make mistakes, and if you do make a mistake, hide your crime. Find a way to make it look not like a mistake. Whiteout, I've used it in the past, and it looks, when you're using it as a means to hide a mistake, it's very obvious because the whiteout has a different coloration than the paper. So at least when you see it in person, there's a very noticeable, like, that's odd kind of thing. Why does that part stand out? And then over time, it yellows too, which is not something I like. I've not noticed it on my pieces that I've used whiteout on, but I have noticed it on like older comic book pages from, like Jack Kirby and that kind of thing, and it's super noticeable. Because like the Bristol paper still stays fairly white even after so many years. Oh yeah, no, people use whiteout a lot when they're inking. You can use it one or two ways, and I don't use whiteout. I use white paint, not as a corrective measure though, but I use it as an effects thing, and maybe we'll use some of it within this, like kind of do like a spray or something to just kind of add a little something extra to it. But yeah, no, people use whiteout or any kind of corrective fluid to either fix mistakes, or they go in and add things that, like, say for instance, it's supposed to be a thin white line. It's insane to ink around that. It's not going to look as good as just inking it black, cover the line, and then go back over and ink the white line. So yeah, so Bruce, did you not like the microns just because of the line quality that they gave, or because yeah, if it was the line quality, yeah, you definitely would not have liked repeated graphs. They're even worse. Hmm. Oh, I get that. Yeah, so line quality. Yeah, they do get used up quickly. So that is the one good thing about repeated graphs is they're refillable. Because they're literally just plastic and metal put together. The only issue is they could be extremely finicky for, and at least personally, I don't think that their line quality is worth the hassle. Um, Unlike, say, an airbrush, where I'm like, yeah, they can be very finicky too, and if you don't use them right, it becomes a pain because now you have to clean it and stuff. However, what I can get out of an airbrush is worth the trouble because it's an effect that I can't really get out of anything else. So I'm just kind of doing some feathering here. And I like feathering with a brush, but I may have to, just because of this scale, I may have to switch over to a Tachikawa nib. Haven't used it yet, though. I'm rather proud of myself. So the Olympics are on, and normally I like watching them. I just this year just didn't care too much because with everything going on, the fact that uh, no spectators really are in the stadiums either to watch the athletes. Like, just feels weird to tune in on it. Though that may change in a few days if I need to actually get onto Google. I haven't been on it in like 2 days or whatever, and I need to see what the actual Google Doodle looks like. My wife mentioned that it's like a full blown RPG, and I just have not had a chance to actually get onto the Google homepage. Yeah, I heard it was. She told me it was like really involved, which I mean they've done some pretty impressive things before for the Google Doodle, so I'm not too surprised. Oh my God. Yeah, maybe I'll check that out then. And I may tune in on the Olympics coverage to watch, like, I don't know, fencing or archery. Those tend to be my two main ones I watch during the Summer Olympics. Oh, that and Taekwondo, or is it Taekwondo or is it karate that they do? I forget. Martial arts. We'll just go with that. Martial arts. I like to watch that too. And whenever they do the X, the extreme sports like skateboarding and stuff. Those are always interesting as well. Every year though, or every time it comes on, I'm like, man, now would be a good time to invest in the VPN, and then I don't get around to it because I hate NBC's coverage of it. So this is something I haven't thought about it too much, but I have heard people say that it does it for them. Inking can help a whole lot in terms of developing your skills as a painter, because it kind of forces you to, one, you can't really fuss with the thing. If you do, you run the risk of really mucking it up. So it kind of forces you to leave the line and put it down. And then like doing this kind of thing where you're really kind of just hinting at the ambient occlusion spots, it kind of teaches you how to think of how the picture reads in a posterized form. And it's one of those things, like, I never did inking as a means to get myself better at that. I just did inking because I had no idea how to do painting for the longest time, so I would ink instead. Hell, I could probably argue that I still don't know what the hell I'm doing with painting. I've just figured out how to hide it and make it look like I know something. Alright, let's see. Add some shadows there. Yeah, you know what? So let me tell you my game plan on this. So I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll kind of finish up with the spot black soonish, and then we're going to start putting in some gray washes. And then I'll go back in with the Tachikawa nib and see what I want to hit up to kind of delineate things. I might use the Tachikawa nib sparingly on this, though, to be honest. So I don't know if either of you had any interest in the new He-Man show that came out. Like if either you got around to watching that or decided, nah. We were watching it last night. I will say, so it's I guess it's kind of like a sequel to the old cartoon. In like this isn't like a reboot. This is clearly continuation, or it assumes a base level of knowledge of He-Man kind of stuff. Um, what I love about it though is it's basically, to me at least, it was like the Skeletor show. Even though he's not the main character, but like he vamps so much in this. I freaking love it. I love how much he loves being evil in this show. It's like him and Palpatine are the two guys that kind of just go with that. Yeah, like even me, Mark, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Like I didn't really watch it as a kid. Um, Once I was a kid, it was kind of off the air, if I remember right. But it had enough cultural zeitgeist that I absorbed enough of what it was just through inference, and then seeing like some of the later shows that like reboots that they tried to do. Um, yeah, so like checking those out kind of filled me in on the details. So like I don't have a strong bond on this, but still seeing it, like just watching like someone like Skeletor just be Skeletor, it's fun. You always love a good villain that knows he's a villain and really doesn't care. Yeah, that's the strange thing I remember. Like, I do remember a lot of the toys, and I feel like, I mean, by the time we were kids, the show pretty much ended, so the toys didn't have anything for it to stand on. I do know that Mattel packaged a comic book in with the toys, and I guess that was their way to keep the what they call the toyetic properties of it alive, like the storytelling aspects of the toys, because apparently this is a thing that toy designers think about as like what is the story that the toy is telling that can keep a person engaged with it. Yeah, like this is I want to know how much I can say. I'll say for a show about He-Man, they are very smart about taking the emphasis off of He-Man, because He-Man's not a terribly interesting character to me. There's far more interesting characters. Um, so they're very smart about. Yeah, yeah. I get. I mean, I don't know. Some people get worried about spoilers, so I was just figuring I was gonna sidestep it if anyone was curious to see it. But yeah, so I'll just say that as a show, they're very smart about uh, de-emphasizing He-Man. See, this is one of those areas where it's slightly odd for me with the ink brush to do a strange move like that. Okay. Oh, you know what? I should probably hit up some areas on the hand. Just to break that up so it's not a solid white shape through and through. Okay, so I think it's going to be time to start doing some ink washes on this and get this guy really going. So I made some ink wells. It's off camera, so I can't quite show it, but I'll show you. I do have a spare of it. I'm just using one of these things. You see them in like every art store, every Michaels. And what it is there's 3 wells filled with water, and that each one has 1, 3, and 5 drops of ink to basically do some real basic ink washes. Now let's just do a quick check on each one. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think those mixes will kind of work. I got some extra ones, and I do have the water still if I feel the need. And ink washes are kind of like the same like ink. You put it down and it's down. There's no fixing it. So you got to learn to hide your crimes or not make them to begin with. I think more with ink washes, it's more the former. You got to hide your crimes a lot because things can get squirrely. Because now you kind of made it into watercolor, and watercolor likes to get away from you. Oh, hey. We're doing some inking today. I'm right now putting in some ink washes over things. And we're inking a Cthulhu in celebration of my Kickstarter that I have going on right now, which you can actually find the link for over at my Twitter at asidesart.com. Or sorry, just at Twitter at asidesart. And we just hit over 50%, so I'm really hoping that it keeps on trucking. Oh, thanks. I hope so too. I'm assuming, is that a reference to the Kickstarter, or is that a reference to the ink drawing that we got going on tonight? The ink drawing, I can at least hide my failures pretty easily if I'm smart about it. The Kickstarter, I would like to not see it fail. I hope. I've been getting decent traction. I'm hoping that it continues on and gets going more. There's a lot of people following it, but very low conversion rate from those people following it, which is kind of frustrating because it's like if you're, I don't know, if they're waiting on the sidelines to see if it actually gets funded, it's like, no, you guys have to actually help to make it get funded. Don't sit on the sidelines on this. But I know that's how some people are. Oh, how's the camera exposure, by the way? Is this looking too dark now with the ink and the ink wash coming in, or is it still pretty legible? If it's too dark or anything, just let me know and I can lighten it up. Okay. Yeah, I'm glancing over my computer, but I just realized my computer, I think, has the night mode on, so it's skewing things and making it look a little bit darker than. Okay, yeah, yeah. The problem is, like, my computer monitor, I forgot to disable the night mode, so it's showing things darker and yellower than it should. So I'm not actually sure if it's looking okay or if it is really that dark. That works for me too then. Yeah, if you guys can see what I'm doing, then that works for me. Just as long as it doesn't look too dark to you, or you know, just hard to read in general. And let's go and do that and block in that guy. That's kind of the reason I didn't want to do the I didn't want to like really ink a whole lot on the tentacles, because I figured in this initial stage I could do a lot of the inking, so to speak, to really get these to pop. And I'm actually using a rosemary brush for these areas because they're fine painting brushes. I just don't like them for inking. And this is kind of more akin to painting than it is actually inking right now. God, and this one's actually, it's turning out really nicely, and I wish I had more time to do some more of these before MegaCon, just to have them for sale. I actually have a very similar approach with Okay, see you soon. Thank you for stopping by, Nami. Um, yeah, so I was gonna say that I have a very similar approach to how I do watercolor. I actually start with a fountain pen base. Like I'll ink it using fountain pen ink, and when you wet it, this stuff like so for example, this is India ink, which is not water soluble. That's kind of why I'm able to go over this with ink washes and it doesn't like blur the existing lines, because once it's down. Nothing will lift it up. But fountain pen ink, when you put it down, the lines get fuzzy. If there's a lot of fountain pen ink, it'll wash out and kind of get, you can kind of do like ink wash effects with it. And then I've noticed, like, once you do that, once it has a little bit of water on it, it kind of fixes it to the page and makes further effects on that less likely to happen. I still think they probably happen to some extent. I just don't notice it. But yeah, I'll start to go over it once I do basically like an underpainting with like a brown fountain pen ink, and then I go back in with watercolor, and then I go on top of that with like gouache and watercolor, and it creates a nice effect. I like it as a sketchbook medium. It's very nice. Yeah, I'm doing a decent time on this. I could be a little bit faster, I think. I think now that the spotting black part is done, we'll kind of get through a lot of. Maybe we'll be able to get through a lot of the grayscale washing on stream, and then maybe off stream I'll have to do the Tachigawa nibs. We'll see. We'll see where we end up. So I'm just kind of going through, and I'm just thinking about like how I would want to posterize this, and that's kind of the key to the ink washes. Is you got to think about it as like, if you ever think about like the posterize effect in Photoshop, you got to think about how you layer it on there. It's, you know what, it's also kind of similar to screen printing, where you have to kind of think about each layer as it goes down. The only difference is I can always go back in and be like, oh, I need that to be a little bit darker. I'm just going to, like this area, like, oh, I need to go in a little bit darker. I'll just kind of go back in and add a little bit extra, which you really can't do with screen printing or the posterization technique. And it's funny, so when I work with watercolors, I don't adhere to the idea of being like a pure watercolorist, how some people are, where they're like, oh, you have to preserve the white of the page to have that be your highlight and stuff. I don't ascribe to that at all. Watercolor, I tend to abuse quite a bit to make it do what I want it to. Inking, though, I do. I mean, as you can see, I've been preserving my the white of the page a lot for the areas I want to kind of lay as the highlights for this. And I don't know why I do that, to be honest. It might stem from that whole thing I was talking about earlier, where I don't like seeing the correction fluid. even if I can help it, I try not to ink stuff that needs to get like a white line or something inked, though I'll do it if I really need to. I'm just not going to use like correction fluid just because who knows what's in that stuff. But I know what's in paint, so I do tend to use paint instead. And I'm just thinking about how I want the contour, the cross contour of the tentacles for texture purposes. So if I went straight down, it wouldn't look great to me. It'll just look flat. But doing this, we actually get like a nice feel of how the tentacles are going, and then I can build that up further too. But it does help put all the tentacles into depth, so I know where they are and where they're coming and going. Let's tackle this back area real quick. Now this reminds me, like Bruce, how do you lay in your paintings? Do you do like a grisaille or anything like that, or some kind of underpainting of some sort? Have you ever kind of tried like a technique like this? Yeah, yeah, but what's your, I guess like what's your workflow for your digital painting? How do you try to be like do you tend to be like direct with your digital painting where you're you know, like I've seen like how some digital artists kind of figure out the picture in a mess and they're just adjusting things as they go along, or are you more of a like a loose drawing in there, or even a tighter drawing? Or have you ever done it like this where you lay in things in a very posterized fashion? Hmm. So you pretty much figure out your values like in the picture. Okay. I've tried to do that. I can do that with like sketches, but gotcha. Okay, so yeah, so Bruce is telling me that he separates sometimes into multiple layers depending on what it is. Gotcha. And it's, yeah, saturated color. Okay. Let's just get that all in there because I will define that later with more ink washes. Don't need to reserve it right now. Yeah, I've tried to. It's funny on a sketch or even something like this. Like I don't worry too much about value comps. It's kind of defeat the purpose of a sketch. But yeah, like larger illustrations, I have found that I absolutely do need to figure out some kind of value comp. It doesn't have to be a super detailed one, but I do need to at least figure out where I want to go. I have found that if I don't, I get into trouble pretty easily with myself. Same thing with color. I've noticed as well. I do need to kind of plan out my color a little bit, even if it's not going to be a one-to-one scenario. I need to at least have an idea outside of my head of where I want to go with it, so I know what I want to do with the painting as I go forward. And I've tried to. It's funny because I'm not a big planner when it comes to like some illustrators do like a lot of drawings, like reference drawings and that kind of thing. Or they'll do like multiple value study comp things, and I don't know. I think probably because of my comics background, I just don't. I never really had that luxury when I was doing comics, so I don't do it with my paintings either, for the most part. Yeah, like Ron is very big into planning, and he was when I was doing a mentorship with him too. He was trying to get me to do more planning as well. Um, and I'll admit, like it is good practice. It's just I think I need to wean myself onto it more because I don't think about it otherwise. That was almost a mistake. Saved it before it did. So I'll admit, in terms of inking, this is probably the most relaxed my hand has ever been. Usually with inking, I'm very tight-fisted, and I've had to like fight against that over the years because it's not healthy. And this is probably the most relaxed I've been able to get it. I think it's probably because I'm not inking like how I normally ink. I just like totally destroyed all that information. Oh, so something with ink washes. I guess this is also kind of true of watercolor as well if you really load it up with water, but I notice this more with ink washes is you see a very definitive value shift as things dry. They tend to jump up about like 1 to 1.5 steps lighter than what they were, and you just need to compensate for it when you notice it. Like example, that tentacle I just covered, it looks pretty dark. I guarantee it's going to lighten up as it goes forward. You can already see it's starting to kind of take on a lighter shade. I mean, the good thing is I'm not lifting up any ink because that's not what this medium does. It just means I have to kind of go back over it more later. Kind of the cool thing about this is I can be pretty abstract, because a lot of this will read as it comes, as you step away from it. I just got to keep the value organization in mind. Yeah, so I wonder if this rosemary brush is meant more as a watercolor brush, because it's doing these ink washes amazing. And it feels really nice to play with, but when I tried it for inking, actual inking, in the past, it was terrible. It just felt so awful. You know, this does remind me, I need to scrounge together the cash or whatever so I can enroll in a Scott Fisher's smart class, because I have some inking questions that I have for him that I think he would be able to answer. Namely, I want to know how the hell does he do pen nibs using the high flow acrylic and the high flow inks, because I have tried it and it does not adhere, it seems, to the pen nib, and it doesn't flow like how ink normally flows, because it's not, I guess it's not as viscous as the ink normally is, which is saying something, because I think ink is relatively watery unless you let it really thicken up for brush use. But he would be the person to know for that kind of thing. So I'm just going through hitting all the areas that I want to with this second round of ink wash. Not really a whole lot to write home about because you see it happening. It's pretty straightforward. I guess the thing I would say is I'm thinking a lot about the planes I would want to highlight in that going forward to get this to stand out. And then I think as I go forward, I need to think about this, because do I want to do full values only on the face and hands? Or do I want to go all over? That is kind of the question. Probably makes more sense to have it only be face and hands. The head for sure. Yeah, before I go to the next step, I think I'm going to just kind of go back through with some, the number 5, or the middle, sorry, number 5, not, I don't know what I'm talking about. The middle value ink wash that I made, and just kind of beef up some areas, because it'll just layer on top and make it look even darker. I'm just looking to see where else I should go. Sorry, just had to mute myself for a second so I can get a drink of water. Yeah, I think this is actually moving along really well. I think I'll be able to either finish it in about 30 or just stay past a little bit past that and finish it out. And then I get to go see if my 3D printer printed the files I sent it earlier successfully, or if I have to tweak even more settings. Oh, you know what? I will quickly go back to the other real quick, because I didn't really do anything in this area. So did anybody finish watching anything good lately, or started watching anything they're enjoying? Besides the He-Man show, we finished the Fear Street trilogy. Oh, so what is so? I've seen that. That's on Netflix, isn't that? If I remember right. So what is Never Have I Ever? I wasn't clear on what the genre was. I admittedly have not done a whole lot of looking into it. Oh, interesting. Maybe curious to check that out then. I did like her previous show that she had on a was that NBC, I think. No, it was on Fox, I believe. But that was also ages ago, so it's been a long time since I've seen a show from her. I'll have to check that out then. And then the other one is and then Mark, you told me Great Pretender, which is con artists ripping off bad guys. Wait, that's a TV. That's like a TV show, correct? That's not like a reality show or something, correct? Oh, oh. So funny story about that one. We started watching it. Um, I don't know what Netflix deal is. But it had like we could not get subtitles on it, which made it incredibly difficult to watch it. Not because it's more because like since I only have like one ear for hearing nowadays, like I'm deaf in one ear now. Uh, like I can't. We basically tried watching it when our kid was still awake, and between the noise of her playing and then trying to suss out what they were saying without subtitles proved to be immensely difficult for me. Um, I'm more or less like I have all shows on subtitles nowadays just to make it easier for me to kind of watch and like half pay attention to it if I want to or something, or if I have to because uh, I'm playing with Marcy or whatever. But yeah, we liked the look of that. I had totally forgotten about it, to be honest, after our. Yeah, like I love the look. Okay, so it wasn't just me then. The subtitles are all screwy. Cause yeah, that was we were very curious about it, and that turned us right off that we couldn't really have subtitles going on in the show. Um, and I'm trying to remember. At least within the first episode, we didn't get far in the first episode, so I remember the dubbing sounded strange to me or whatever. Oh. Yeah, that's what I remember. It started sub, and we were like, okay, that's fine. We can work around that. And then when it went to dub, they dropped the subtitles entirely, and then I was like, I'm lost. I can't keep track of it now because Marcella is like playing in the background and stuff. Yeah, I gotta look then to see what I need to turn on to get that to be a thing. I've been watching Godzilla Singular Point, and I still haven't gotten Godzilla yet. I'm still waiting. I think the next episode I'm watching should have him appear. It's the techno babble in this anime though is horrific. It's just so dense and so non. I mean, it's techno babble. It like gives me vibes of like the worst of Star Trek when in that vein where you're just tuned out because it's just all gobbledygook and doesn't make any sense. Like I'm tuning in to watch Godzilla somehow take on this jet jaguar that is much too tiny for him. That's all I want to see potentially. Where should I go on this? Let's add. This is like an ambient occlusion shadow, so let's add some dark washes back into there. Oh, another anime that I watched not too long ago was Carolyn Tuesday on Netflix, which was actually really delightful. That was a really nice anime. It's by the Cowboy Bebop creator Shinichiro Watanabe or Shinichiro Watanabe. Sorry, that's his name. I actually think it's based in the Cowboy Bebop universe, or it shares enough similarities that you could roll with it and be like, yeah, it is. Shared currency, similar sort of things, like they're based on Mars, and it's like partially terraformed. There's robots, that kind of thing. It's set in the future. All right, let's see. Let's go back through with the middle wash and add some areas. Okay, you know what? I think it might be time for the nib. We're not going to do a whole lot of it. I'm just going to use it to feather some areas. Again, using this Tachigawa Manga G nib. Amazing nib if you've only ever used like a crow quill or like well, I guess that is what the Hunt 102 is. It's a crow quill. But yeah, if you ever used that and you've only ever used that, I highly recommend trying out this. It's a really great nib. Apologies, just noticed my head is getting in the way a little. So I've kind of trained myself over the years to not be so close on certain things, but inking I still do. I just can't help it. Okay, this is odd because you really should twist around the page for pen inking, and it probably should be more horizontal instead of trying to do this thing near vertical like how I have it set up for this. I should think about how I can change around my camera. So I'm not really a fan of how this is right now. I thought about like maybe mounting it upside down above my table, but the problem is like I also have a light up there, so it would be casting a shadow, which makes that a non-viable solution because it'll be like a shadow right over the workpiece. Sorry, I'm just getting a little close just to figure that out so I can see it a little bit better. Okay. Let's see. Oh, nice. Like a realistic smoke plume or more like stylized? You know, I guess first thing that comes to mind for that is like a train, but the only thing with that is it's rarely photographed with the train being blurred. It's you know, usually the background is blurred and the train is fixed, which means the steam or the smoke also is kind of fixed coming out of it. I usually I don't know if he would poo-poo this idea or not, but in the past when I've looked at, yeah. So are you I guess for the reference, would it be like an object that would look blurred and then the smoke coming out of it would also be blurred as well, or is it a case of like the background is blurred because the focal is on the object, which then would also mean like the smoke is also mostly in focus as well? Okay, so yeah, actually a train with a smoke plume would be the most immediate thing I could think of, because they're almost always photographed as being the focal point, so the background is always in motion, and that's the blurry aspect of it, not the train itself. I remember I actually for a lot of effects, just like how to think about effects and stuff. I used like two resources for the longest time. Uh, this I would either look at how anime or other animation would handle that kind of thing, and then eventually I got a book by an ex Visifex Disney animator called, crap, I can't remember the name of it. But basically, he was a 2D animator that wrote two books about how to do all these different effects and stuff that you have to worry about for like a 2D thing, like smoke, fire, water, magical effects, and it's a really incredible breakdown about how to think about those things and then how to like stylize it. It's definitely one of those books I need to like actually revisit, because I'm pretty sure I've forgotten like 70% of it. But yeah, for you, like for the reference, I'm thinking like a train, or what other thing is in high motion that would probably have that? NASCAR perhaps, or F1. Though it might not be. That's probably not the smoke effect that you're looking for. That's more like burnout tires squealing kind of thing than it is like a smoke plume. Oh. Yeah, so it needs to read at like a very small scale. And yeah, it needs to keep white smoky steam. Yeah, really, in that case, train. Like a steam train. That's immediately where my brain goes to, at least. Um, or even just videos of the other like steam powered vehicles or objects to see how they would do that. An object that has a lot of smoke, but it has to be white. Yeah, that's tough. Okay, let's see. I don't know if I'm going to do any more of the nib, partly because I am just finding it to be a bear to work it at this angle on the page. But I think I'll do a few more touches with ink wash, and then I'm going to probably do like a little bit of white paint on the bottom as like a splatter effect, just to kind of, I don't know, maybe make it look like embers, something like little flames or whatever. And then I think I can call it. Let's see. Oh, thanks, Bruce. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, man. Always good to have you around. So, Mark, did you happen to watch the Godzilla Singular Point at all, or no? Oh, okay. Totally fair then. I wasn't sure if you were a kaiju person or not. It's been interesting. Uh, yeah, I'm not sure if I like it yet. I think I might actually have to watch the whole series to make an assessment, which is rare for me because usually it's kind of like, it's yeah, the Godzilla stuff. It's I started rewatching it, Actually, you might like this one then. The anime. It takes itself pretty seriously. It has a lot of techno babble and stuff to it. And the designs are not as Godzilla is still like a kaiju monster. At least like his skeleton from what we've seen in the show. Yes, I think it is. I actually have not looked up to see who did it. It's the one that came out recently, and it has the really unconventional Rodan design. That's more like a pterosaur than it is like the traditional Rodan look. Oop, just realized I was mostly in the camera. But they're kind of neat. They're like the Rodan in this. Like they're smaller, but there's like thousands of them because they basically act as like you know how seagulls will like circle around feeding areas of like sharks or whales or whatever because they know they can kind of swoop in there and get something extra for themselves. Like Rodan kind of is like that in this show. So there's like thousands of them. They're basically like circling around like as like harbingers of Godzilla. Let's see, I'm like just trying to see if there's anything else on this that I should hit up before I call it. Thunderbolt Fantasy, what is that? I've never even heard of that, to be honest. Oh, interesting. I will have to check that out. That sounds intriguing. I'm just gonna mute myself real quick so I can go and look for some paint. Okay, so before I wrap it up, I'm going to hit it with a brush like this. We're just gonna basically flick paint across it like that. We'll see how it goes. Detail. So what is that on Thunderbolt Fantasy? Is that on Netflix or any of those, or is it like on Crunchyroll or something? I gotta hunt down for it. Yeah. Crunchyroll. Oh. I'll have to look that in. Or I'll have to look that up. I have a friend that I believe has a Crunchyroll account, so maybe I'll ask him, like, hey, do you mind if I borrow your login so I can check this thing out? Or just visit him and watch it over there. It's been fucking for ages since I've seen him. Alright. You need to let that try for a moment. And then I'm just going to kind of tone down some areas again. I'll have to look this up. This sounds intriguing. I've been rewatching Gundam because I want to eventually watch Gundam Hathaway. Right? That's the new... Yeah, that is the new one. So I've been watching the original Gundam series on Netflix because they have the movie versions. So that's where most of my anime has been lately. One thing I'll say, so I'd only seen the original series in TV series form. I'd never seen it as the edited movies. And I think I'm on the third movie now, and it's moving along at a quick pace, but I'm kind of... Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going. So like, so I was gonna say, like, the first one, the first movie of the original series is pretty good. The third one right now is shaping up to be like decent pacing. The second one has really terrible pacing. It goes... There's a lot of weird parts in it where it feels very, very cut to be haste, because they realize, like, holy shit, we spent a lot of time on this one thing, so we have no time to focus on these other characters or anything like that. It was like, I want to say, like, pretty much after this is like early on in the second movie, like when the Guff comes out with Ramba Ral. See, so I thought that too. The third movie might be pretty tight. Right now, it's fast, and it's clear that there is some... It does seem like they're glossing over some stuff. Like, I just saw Dozel Zabi get killed by the big Zam. And then, and I think we're only like 30 minutes in, something like that, of a 2.5 hour movie. Which means they're probably going to have the very end of it just basically be like the last... Yeah, that's in movie 3. Movie 2 pretty much... So movie 1 is them leaving... which side is it? Side 7? And then going to Earth. And the first movie ends with them... trying to remember if it ends... Does it end with them in going to Earth? Movie 2 is in Jaburo, yeah. So okay, so movie 1 ends with Giran's speech, his like Sig Xeon speech and all that. That's where the first movie ends. And then movie 2 picks up with them being like, "Oh God, we're down on Earth. We need to get to Jaburo." And the entirety of the second movie is them getting to Jaburo, and then leaving Jaburo and going into space. The second movie ends with them leaving Jaburo and going up into space. And so, yeah, the third movie is like, oh my God, you're going to tackle everything about them being back into space. And yeah, I'm kind of curious to see. I have a feeling what it's going to be like is like all of the, a lot of the movie is, or a lot of the story is going to get cut down a shit ton to make up for the finale, like the final battle aspect of it. And then they'll go from there. Yeah, that's true. So if I had like, I'm stingy, so if I had like the Funimation app, I would just watch them all on there because I believe they're all on there, the entire series. And it's not many episodes. It's only 70 something episodes. I would easily burn through that. That's no big deal. But I don't have Funimation. Haven't felt like subscribing yet. Hmm. So I've got that to finish up, and then yeah, that's what I've heard too. Is it it got canceled, and then in reruns, that's where everyone actually found it and ended up liking it. So yeah, so I've got Gundam to finish up, and then I need to watch. I want to rewatch Char's Counterattack, and they have that now on Netflix as well. So I'm gonna probably watch that because I haven't seen that since high school. Yeah, that's true. Because otherwise, they probably would have meandered around, and it would have just been bloated. I kind of get that with some of the later Gundam shows. Oh, that's good. Yeah, so the last time I saw Char's Counterattack was in high school. That was like, how old am I? That was like 19 years ago, 18 years ago that I last saw that. And back then I just was like, yeah, whatever, Gundam, I want to watch that. Um, and my girlfriend at the time had gotten me that movie as like a birthday gift, I think, because she knew I liked Gundam and that kind of thing. I remember liking it though when I was younger. Yeah, I need to. I'm yes, I'm definitely hoping to, and I'm hoping that Hathaway is better than. I did not care for Gundam Unicorn at all. So just as a quick aside, I'm just going back through and pumping up some values on areas here and there before I call this thing. The ink doesn't quite settle on top of the white paint. I don't know if that's just a matter of the fact that because the paint is plastic, it's like because it's acrylic, it's latex paint. The ink wash, I think, just rolls off it, so it's kind of like I can go over it, but the ink, the paint still stays. I had seen no, yeah, I have not seen Double Zeta, but I've seen Zeta. Or are they the same thing? Oh, that okay. So that's what I thought. Yeah, I have not seen Double Zeta. The Universal Century Gundams I've seen are Gundam, obviously. What is one? 083. The one that's like it's a side story. Zeta, and then Eighth Mobile Suit. Which other ones? Char's Counterattack. Oh, Gundam Unicorn. I think that might be it for the. Yeah, it's basically with the children that realize they learn the hard way that war sucks, and they start off as like real young kids. Oh yeah, that's War in the Pocket. Yeah. Yeah, they start off as like really young kids, like obsessed about the mobile suits, and then by the end of it, the main character doesn't care about any of that shit anymore because he's seen some real heavy things that he shouldn't be seeing for like an 8-year-old. Yes, yeah. So eighth mobile suit team I really liked in high school, and then I gave it a watch again, and it still holds up. Um, uh, I think any issues I have with it are just a matter of I think anime pacing from the time or story telling from that time from that era. Um, But the animations, however, ooh, mwah, freaking fantastic. Like that whole scene with the Guff Custom versus yeah, it's versus the Easy 8, right? Like the main character's rebuilt Gundam. Actually, a lot of the come to think of it, a lot of the action scenes in that were amazing. So I've never seen Turn A, but I'm curious about it. But I do. I've read about it and have taken away like, wow, that's really bizarre. I am curious about it if I can ever see it somewhere. Yeah, that's what I've heard. It's kind of not Gundam in the way that you think that Gundam is. And then the fact it like takes place Doesn't it take place in the like the very far future of Universal Century? Oh God, that's the singularity point. No, that sounds like such a bad idea. You're trying to tell me G Gundam with its like mariachi Gundam leads to turn A somehow? Oh no. I I I kid. I actually like G Gundam quite a bit. I remember liking it when I watched it, even though it's fucking insane. It's absolutely out there. I do enjoy it. That seems so okay, so humanity has like reached a similar level of tech each time around and largely has been the same. Oh, wait, hold on. Maybe I read that wrong. Yeah, that's odd. That's odd that that's a theory of it. Yeah, that's kind of what I remember hearing about like as the way that they were doing like callbacks to all the different series. 'Cause like what is it? I mean Zaku's are in there, but then also the grunts from Gundam Wing are in there as well. Whatever they were called, I forget. As I call them, the less perfect uh, Zaku's, because Zaku's are pretty perfect design as far as I'm concerned. Actually, most of the Xeon designs I think are amazing. I just remember afterwards, like the Gundam Wing grunts are so boring in comparison. Really, like a another mecha series. Huh. I wonder what one that is. Well, I will have to give that some thought, but I think let me just pull this back a little. I think I'm done with this. So I believe I'm going to be heading out for the night. So thank you, Mark, for hanging out with me. I know Bruce says, yeah, maybe watercolor next time. I have a lot of deadlines coming up, so I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to do another stream again. Uh, it may be some time, unless I do one of the paintings in progress that I can kind of show without and just have that on stream or something like that. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. Though it would be nice to do like a. I like doing these smaller pieces just because I can kind of get them done within about 2 hours or so, uh, and have it still kind of be like a sketch as opposed to like when I'm working on a larger piece. It's you're kind of like you come into the middle of it and you leave like in the middle of it. There's no real beginning, middle, end to the story. So yeah, but yeah, so I have some projects I have coming up that I really can't show what I'm working on with those until they come out, and then I have some personal projects I wanted to get taken care of before MegaCon, which is in like 3 weeks. So I got a motor on those as well. Oh, gotcha. So when it's a deadline stream, are you just like I'm not interacting with any of you. I have to hunker down, or is it just like a skip? Oh, gotcha. Yeah, like if I didn't have if the stuff that I was working on was like not NDA, I would probably do that. But yeah, if I may do like one of my larger pieces on the stream. It's just the only issue with that is like it's like that what you said. It's like a deadline stream. It's you don't you're not going to really see a thing at beginning to end. It's going to be like kind of in the middle, and then it's going to end like kind of in the middle because those take much longer than like 3 hours. But you know what? I just realized we can do at least this before I leave. We can see how it looks. Sans blue tape. Because I always love doing this. Oh yeah, that's sharp. Yeah. Yeah, oh, I love taking the paint off or the tape off of paintings just to show like how clean that looks. That doesn't always happen though. There's sometimes paint will, if I don't burnish the tape edges too well, paint will find a way to seep underneath, and then it kind of ends up as like a less than clean look. But it's always nice when it is like fully clean like this, and then you can kind of see it as a nice little thing. Yeah, I could actually go back in with gesso to for those. So yeah, so that's the piece. I will I will scan it and upload it to Twitter and Instagram and all that to see. If you're in the Orlando area for MegaCon, I'll probably have this piece available for sale there, and then if it doesn't sell there, it'll go up on the online store afterwards. Yep, yeah, get the clicks. But yeah, so yeah, thank you, Mark, for hanging out with me. Thanks to Bruce for popping in. This piece I don't think they'll be too expensive. Probably like a couple hundred. I've noticed that ink pieces don't tend to get the same attention as like a painted piece does. So I have to kind of keep it within the realm of only a few $100s or so for asking for a piece like this. But yeah, like no, I totally understand. I would be collecting more. We only have like two originals in the house that we bought, and they're cheap. They're one's only like 100 something bucks, and then the other one was like $50 because they were like sketchbook pages. Um, but they're both of like friends that I really like the art of, so I'm really happy to own them. I wish I could do more of it, but yeah, I'm poor as well to be able to do that kind of thing. So yeah, thanks to Bruce for popping in as well. Thanks to anyone else that has was watching. Uh, and yeah, so my Kickstarter is still running. Again, you can find the link at A Sides Art on Twitter. We just got over 51% funded on there. Hoping we can get further along. And we've also got a Patreon, patreon.com/asidesart. And that should be everything. So, yeah. Thanks everyone for coming to hang out. And I will catch you all later.